So today I'm going to be taking you through an example fit using our AVODA precision fitting system. So this is the base kit. This is every step in the process. Brandon's here as the demo for today. So the first part of the fitting, you're going to have your client come in and get warmed up with whatever clubs they're using at the moment, work their way to a 7-iron. While they're doing that, we're going to go ahead and set up the system and just start to watch a little bit about how they hit golf shots and which direction we think the fit might be going in. So Brandon, if you go ahead and start warming up, and I'm going to set the kit up. Cool. So the first part of the fitting, we're going through a lie angle test. We always start out with the lie angle testing. It's the #1 component in a club for changing everything about how a player moves and their ball flight. So we want to get that done first before we move on to anything else. So for the lie angle test, I'm going to grab the standard length shaft that's labeled 37 inches / same length. This is also the shaft that's used for all the same length testing, along with the 62-degree lie angle head. So this is roughly in the middle of every option you're going to have. So you're going to have them hit a few with this, and what we always say to the client is, if you were going to go away and play a whole year of golf with this club, do whatever you feel you need to do to make it work. We want to find out how good it is once they figured out how to make it work, not how bad it is before they figured it out. We're just going to have them hit about half a dozen shots with each. A rule we have is that we never judge the first few shots during the lie angle fit. The reason being is we've just changed the variable. The player right now doesn't know how to make that work. So they're going to spend the first couple of shots trying to figure it out. Once they've figured it out and you can see they've started to find a consistent strike and a consistent pattern, that's when we will start judging whether or not this is the right variable for them. And while they're hitting the standard, you're going to be looking from down the line and getting a rough idea if you think they need to be going more upright or flatter from this point. So things we're going to be looking at will be strike location, divot depth. If they're hitting higher on the face, it might be a sign that the club's too upright for them. If they're hitting lower on the face, it might be a sign it's too flat. If the strike's more towards the toe, it could be too flat. More towards the heel, it could be too upright. So we're just getting an overall idea of where we think that club is at versus what they need. So for Brandon from watching, we think this club will be very slightly too flat for him. It's not far off, but if anything, slightest bit too flat for him. So when we go from here, we actually want to go in the opposite direction to what we think is right for them. The way we put the system together is to give the player the best chance to experience how much a golf club can change things for them, whether it's right or wrong. So if we think they need to be more upright, what we'll actually do is move them in the opposite direction to flat and then gradually work in that direction. If we think they need to be flatter, we'll move upright and work back. And if you're not too sure, just pick a direction. It doesn't really matter because they're going to hit everything. We want to see how they react to all of the lie angles in both directions, so there's no bias to which lie angle we put them in.
Yeah, it's supposed to just slightly on the toe, just a little bit.
Cool. So we think he needs to be slightly more on the upright side, so what I'm actually going to do is move him in the opposite direction. We had the 62-degree, I'm now going to move him to the 60-degree. And this is as much a player-led fitting as it is a fitter-led fitting. We really want to find out how the player feels as they hit each variable. So you're going to ask them, how does this feel? Does this get easier? Did it get more difficult? What do you feel like you had to do differently?
Little toe.
So that one was a little toey.
Yeah.
And that's typically what we see when a club gets too flat for a player, is the strike will get a bit thin, the divot will be shallower, and the strike will move more towards the toe. Obviously a lie angle that's too flat will come in toe down. This can then cause the player to make adjustments to their swing to present the club flat or to try and square the faceplane, or both at the same time. Cool. So he's hit a couple of shots, he's started to get a feel for what he needs to do. Now is when we start watching. We never watch on those first couple. Cool, give me 2 more with that.
Definitely toe digging first. I can really feel, and I feel like I gotta close the face a little earlier. Otherwise it's gonna jump right on me. Kinda like that wasn't bad.
Cool, 1 more. And at this point where you can clearly see that this isn't as consistent as the one before, he's already feeling he has a lot more work to do to make it work. And that's the biggest difference in an AVODA fitting versus a regular fitting. We don't use a lie board to test whether or not the lie angle is right for a player. We want them to hit everything and experience for themselves. A lie angle that's wrong for the player will increase the compensations they need to make to hit a good shot, increase the amount of work they have in the swing, and they'll feel how much more difficult it got. So it's a very simple question. Did that get more difficult or easier than the one before?
More difficult.
Cool. So we know we did go in the wrong direction. And that's just as much to expose the player to a variable that's wrong for them as it is to try and remove the fitter's bias, because if we said, here's where I think you need to go, and we were wrong, we never get a chance to find out we were wrong. So we know that moving him in that direction made things worse. Was it a lot worse or a little bit worse?
It was a little bit worse. I feel like I had to make too many changes to my swing to try to get it to
Cool.
it to go.
So if it was a lot worse, significantly worse to where he couldn't really make contact, that would suggest he needs to be a lot further in the opposite direction. Because it was only a little bit worse, it suggested he's not that far off. And we could see at the beginning of the fitting with the standard 62-degree lie angle that it wasn't that far off anyway. So chances are, as we move through these, he's going to hit the extreme upright a little bit better than he hit the extreme flat. And that shows he needs to be a little bit upright. Again, we can clearly see that was better, but we're not judging those first couple. Now he's found a way to swing it. This is when we start looking. And what you might start to see when a player goes from the flatter lie angle to something a little bit more upright is with the flat lie angle with the toe more down, they're used to closing the face plane. As they start working up, they still try and do that and they get a couple of left misses. Then that's why we don't judge the first few, we give them a chance to figure it out. Cool. So you've had a few shots with that now. Easier or more difficult than the one before?
Easier than the one before, still fighting it a little bit,
Cool.
but it is easier.
All right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to move him to the extreme opposite. So we're now going to move him to the 64-degree lie angle. And he's going to do the same thing. He's going to hit half a dozen shots with this one. Cool, so you've had a few shots with that. Is that feeling easier or more difficult than the other two?
Easier, by far.
Cool.
Turf interaction's a lot better.
Cool. On your miss hit with that one, obviously it does get a little bit deeper on the divot.
Yeah.
So when we see the divot getting a little bit deeper on a miss hit, or the strike getting a little bit heely, or even the ball flight starting to go quite high, that usually tells us that it's very slightly too upright. So out of the two extremes, he definitely hit the more upright extreme better than the flatter extreme, which tells us he needs to be more on the upright side, so we can rule out that flatter side. Now we've got to figure out how much upright. Cool. If anything, do you feel like you're avoiding a thin or a fat shot with that club?
Avoiding a fat.
Cool. So when a club gets a little bit upright, the radius gets short, and that player's having to find ways to move away from the ground.
Definitely, when it's sitting more upright at impact, or at address, I feel like I almost have to get my hands up higher to get it to square.
Cool. We're going to move back to the standard. We know that that one, if anything, was very slightly upright for you because you were feeling like you had to avoid the ground, but it was definitely better than the opposite extreme when you were flat.
Definitely.
So we're going to move you back to the 62. And we're just going to hit another half a dozen shots and see what happens. Okay, one more with that. If anything, with this one, do you feel like you're having to work to get down to the ground or more away from the ground?
I work a little more to get down on it.
Okay. And that's the one that's slightly low on the face.
Yep.
So if you have a club that is slightly too upright, the divot might get a little bit deeper, and then from there they have to stand up to avoid it, and the divot gets very shallow. If it's slightly too flat, they're going to hit low on the face, not much divot, then they're going to over-exaggerate to try and get to the ball, and they're going to end up taking a big divot. So we can see that both were pretty good, but one of them was slightly on the heavy side with deeper divots, one was slightly on the thinner side with shallower divots. Would you say they were equally as good as each other?
Equally, I think I like this one a little better. I'd rather have the feeling of staying down than standing myself up and away from it.
Yep. And then we also had some good strikes with the upright one as well.
Correct.
So if you find two that are both pretty good, you meet in the middle. So what we're going to do now is take the 63-degree lie angle, which is right in between the two, and have them hit a few with this. If you find a clear winner, that's the one. If you find two that are both pretty good, one has some advantages, the other has some advantages, then you can just meet in the middle of those two.
Yeah, that was really good.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot
Okay,
better.
couple more. Again, we can see it's already better, but we really try and not judge those first couple of shots. We want the player to have at least 3 shots before we start judging the outcomes.
Contact's way better though.
Cool. So out of everything we've hit so far, we've found a clear winner.
Yep.
It's the 63-degree lie angle. So in a typical lie angle fitting, you're going to hit a couple of shots on a lie board, and we're going to move it in a direction. With how we're going through the lie angle fitting here, we're giving the player a chance to experience how good it can be when the lie angle is right for them, but how far off it can be and how difficult the swing gets when it's wrong for them. And this gives the player a bit of an insight into how important the equipment is around the whole improvement in the game, around everything they do with their swing from a practice point of view, their confidence on the golf course. It's all decided upon by that #1 factor in the golf club, which is the lie angle of the club. And he hasn't changed his golf swing today. He's the same person he turned up, but yet he's found one that he could hit the same every single time. And then he's found some that it doesn't matter how hard he worked, he couldn't quite get it dialed in. Now we've completed our lie angle fitting, we're going to take that same lie angle head and use that for the shaft fitting.